The warning no one believed. The message that changed everything. Captain Alina. Reyes stood in the communications hub of Gateway Station, staring at the screen that displayed the impossible. For 3 months, humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition, a vast network of civilizations that spanned thousands of star systems. Earth had been welcomed with open arms, treated as a curiosity rather than a threat. The galaxy had seemed friendly, peaceful, and safe. Now, everything had changed. The message came from the Krell Dominion, one of the oldest and most powerful empires in known space. Their ships were legendary, their technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. They controlled 78 star systems and had never lost a war in their 5,000-year history. The message was brief and cold. Humanity had 3 days to abandon their colony on Threshold, a garden world on the edge of Krell territory. If humans remained, the Dominion would consider it an act of aggression. The consequence would be total war. Reyes read the message again, her hands trembling slightly. Threshold was home to 12,000 colonists, families who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. They had farms and schools and dreams of a future. The planet was legally human territory, recognized by the Galactic Coalition itself. The Krell demand made no sense. It violated every treaty and convention that governed interstellar relations. A galaxy that did not care. Ambassador Marcus Webb arrived at Coalition headquarters within hours, demanding an emergency session of the Galactic Council. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed too many diplomatic failures. He had spent his entire career building relationships with alien civilizations, believing that reason and law could solve any dispute. Now he faced representatives from 47 different species, each one refusing to meet his gaze. The council chamber was vast, a circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Holographic displays showed the disputed territory, with Threshold marked as a tiny blue dot. Webb stood at the center and made his case. He spoke of treaties and agreements, of the legal framework that protected all coalition members. He reminded the council that humanity had followed every rule, respected every boundary, and contributed to galactic society in good faith. The response was silence. Finally, the Vexen representative spoke. The Vexen were an ancient race of insectoid creatures, whose civilization predated most others in the galaxy. Their ambassador clicked and whistled, the translator rendering his words in flat, emotionless tones. The Krell Dominion was powerful. The Krell Dominion was old. If they wanted Threshold, they must have reasons that humanity could not understand. It would be wiser for humans to accept their demand and avoid conflict. Webb felt his throat tighten. He looked around the chamber, searching for allies. The Morvath delegation looked away. The Teln representatives studied their data pads. The Horix ambassador simply closed all 6 of his eyes. One by one, every species in the council made their position clear through action or inaction. Humanity would receive no help. The galaxy would not risk war with the Krell to protect one human colony. The decision Earth had to make. The United Earth government convened in an emergency session that lasted 14 hours. President Sarah Chen sat at the head of the table, surrounded by advisors, military commanders, and colonial representatives. The debate was fierce. Some argued for immediate evacuation. 12,000 lives were not worth a war humanity could not win. Others demanded resistance. If Earth surrendered Threshold without a fight, it would signal weakness. The Krell would make more demands, taking human colonies one by one until nothing remained. General Marcus Stone presented the military analysis. He was a veteran of Earth's last major conflict, a man who understood war in ways that politicians never could. His report was brutal in its honesty. The Krell fleet consisted of over 2,000 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity possessed. Earth's entire military numbered 300 vessels, most of them designed for system defense rather than offensive operations. In a direct confrontation, the human fleet would be destroyed within hours. Dr. Sarah Kim offered a different perspective. She was a xenopsychologist who had spent years studying alien cultures and behavior patterns. She explained that the Krell operated according to strict hierarchies and codes of honor. They valued strength above all else. Throughout their history, species that surrendered to Krell demands were absorbed into their empire as vassal states. Species that fought, even unsuccessfully, were sometimes granted respect and autonomy. The Krell understood defiance in ways they could never understand submission. President Chen listened to every voice in the room. She asked questions, challenged assumptions, and demanded alternatives. When the debate finally ended, she made her decision. Humanity would not abandon Threshold. The colonists would be given the choice to evacuate, but Earth would defend their right to stay. If the Krell wanted war, they would have it. The message was transmitted to the Dominion within the hour. It contained only 7 words, but those words would echo across the galaxy for generations to come. We do not abandon our people. The colonists, who refused to run, Governor James Martinez received Earth's message in his office on Threshold. He was a practical man who had built his colony through careful planning and hard work. He had never wanted to be part of a galactic crisis. Now he had to make an impossible choice. He called a town meeting in the central square, where 12,000 colonists gathered under alien stars. Martinez explained the situation with complete honesty. The Krell were coming. Earth would send what military support it could, but the odds were terrible. Anyone who wanted to leave would be evacuated immediately. No questions asked. The response surprised him. Only 800 colonists chose evacuation, mostly families with young children. The rest voted to stay. An elderly farmer named Robert Chen spoke for many when he addressed the crowd. He had left Earth because he was tired of running from problems. He had come to Threshold to build something permanent, something worth protecting. If he ran now, he would spend the rest of his life running. Better to stand and fight, even if the fight seemed hopeless. Martinez watched his people prepare for war. Farmers became soldiers. Teachers organized supply lines. Engineers transformed agricultural equipment into improvised weapons. The colony had no military infrastructure, no trained army, no defensive systems. What they had was determination and a fierce refusal to surrender what they had built. Martinez sent daily reports to Earth, documenting the preparations. He never mentioned the fear that kept him awake at night, or knowledge that most of these people would likely die. He only reported that Threshold was ready. The fleet, that should not exist. Admiral Catherine Cross commanded Earth's response force from the bridge of the battleship Defiance. She was young for her rank, promoted rapidly during humanity's expansion into space. She had never fought a real war, only training exercises and pirate suppression missions. Now she led 200 ships toward a battle that every simulation said they could not win. Her orders were clear but impossible. Hold Threshold for as long as possible. Inflict maximum damage on the Krell fleet. Show the galaxy that humanity would not be pushed around. The human fleet gathered at the edge of Threshold's star system. Cross studied the tactical displays, searching for any advantage. The Krell would have superior numbers, superior weapons, and superior technology. What humans had was unpredictability. The Krell fought according to ancient traditions and battle doctrines that had remained unchanged for millennia. Human military tactics were barely a century old, born from Earth's own brutal conflicts. Cross decided to use that difference. She divided her fleet into small, mobile squadrons that could operate independently. She gave each captain the freedom to make their own tactical decisions. Instead of meeting the Krell in a traditional battle line, humans would swarm and scatter, striking from unexpected angles and retreating before the enemy could respond. Her officers questioned the strategy. Some called it cowardice. Cross listened to their concerns and then asked a simple question that silenced the debate. Do you want to die like the Krell expect, or do you want to fight like humans? The answer was obvious. The fleet began drilling in the new tactics, practicing maneuvers that no other species had ever attempted. They were not ready, not really. But time had run out. Krell sensors had detected their presence. The enemy fleet was coming. The moment before the storm, in the final hours before battle. People across human space watched their screens and waited. News channels showed images of the Krell fleet. Massive vessels that looked like floating fortresses. Commentators discussed the odds, and none of them offered hope. Some called for peace negotiations, arguing that pride was not worth extinction. Others demanded resistance at any cost, saying that a life lived in fear was no life at all. In cities across Earth, and on colonies throughout human space, people gathered in silence. They waited to see if humanity's brief moment among the stars would end before it truly began. On Threshold, Governor Martinez walked through the colony one last time. He saw children playing in the streets, farmers tending their fields, families eating dinner together. Everything seemed normal, peaceful, and fragile. He returned to his office and opened a secure channel to Earth. His message was brief. He thanked President Chen for standing with them. He promised that Threshold would fight with everything it had. He said that whatever happened, humanity's answer to the galaxy had been given. They would not bow. They would not break. If the stars wanted humanity gone, they would have to take them by force. Admiral Cross sat alone in her quarters as her fleet approached the battle zone. She thought about all the training simulations she had run, all the battles she had studied, all the advice from veterans who had fought humanity's past wars. None of it seemed adequate for what was coming. She was about to face an enemy that had crushed civilizations more advanced than her own. But she felt no urge to surrender, no desire to flee. Instead, she felt something unexpected. She felt ready. The Krell were about to learn something that the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Humans did not start wars lightly, but once started, they fought them in ways that broke every rule and shattered every expectation. The battle that changed the rules. When the Krell arrived, the Krell fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm made of metal and fire. 2,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, each one a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Their vessels were enormous, some measuring over 3 kilometers in length. Energy shields glowed around each ship. Weapons batteries covered every surface. And fighter craft swarmed between the larger vessels like schools of predatory fish. Admiral Koros commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Eternal Victory. He was a decorated warrior who had led campaigns against 17 different species. He had expected humans to run or surrender. Instead, his sensors detected the human fleet, waiting near Threshold's orbit. Koros studied the tactical display with growing confusion. The human formation made no sense. Instead of gathering into defensive positions, their ships were scattered across millions of kilometers of space. Some hid near the planet's moons. Others drifted among the asteroid belt. A few hung motionless in the shadow of Threshold itself. It looked like chaos, like the humans had no battle plan at all. Koros considered it further evidence of their primitive nature. He ordered his fleet forward in the traditional Krell attack formation, a massive wedge designed to punch through enemy lines and destroy their command structure. Admiral Cross watched the Krell advance from her position behind Threshold's largest moon. She felt her pulse quicken, but kept her voice steady as she gave orders. The human fleet had no single command structure to destroy. Each squadron operated independently, following guidelines rather than direct orders. As the Krell fleet entered the system, Cross activated the first phase of humanity's defense. It was not an attack. It was a test. The first strike that should not have worked. Captain David Park commanded a squadron of 8 frigates, small fast ships designed for hit and run tactics. His vessels accelerated from their hiding position behind an asteroid field, engines burning at maximum power. The Krell sensors detected them immediately. 3 cruisers broke formation to intercept, weapons charging. Park's squadron did not try to fight. They fired a spread of missiles, and then immediately reversed course, diving back toward the asteroids. The Krell cruisers pursued. Their commanders saw easy prey, damaged ships fleeing in panic. The cruisers entered the asteroid field at full speed, confident that their shields could handle any impact. Park had counted on that confidence. His squadron had spent days seeding the asteroid field with improvised mines, simple devices that the Krell sensors would dismiss as debris. When the cruisers triggered the trap, explosions rippled through the field. The lead cruiser's shields flickered and collapsed. Park's frigates reversed course again and concentrated all their firepower on the exposed vessel. It took 3 minutes of sustained bombardment, but the cruiser finally broke apart, its core reactor exploding in a brilliant flash. The other two cruisers retreated, their commanders suddenly cautious. Park's squadron vanished back into the asteroids before reinforcements could arrive. The engagement had lasted less than 10 minutes. The Krell had lost one ship. Humans had lost nothing. It was not a victory, not really. But it proved something important. The Krell could bleed. A battle that refused to be a battle. Admiral Koros watched his tactical display with growing frustration. The humans refused to fight properly. Instead of gathering their fleet for a decisive engagement, they struck from shadows and fled. Before his ships could respond, small human squadrons would appear, fire a few volleys, and vanish. His larger vessels could not catch the smaller human ships. His fighters could not operate effectively without support from capital ships. Every time Krell forces advanced to crush a human position, they found nothing but empty space. Koros ordered his fleet to divide, sending hunting groups to track down the scattered human squadrons. This was his second mistake, though he did not realize it yet. As the Krell formation broke apart, human tactics evolved. Captain Jennifer Walsh led 3 destroyers in a daring attack on a Krell battleship that had separated from the main fleet. Her ships attacked from 3 different angles, simultaneously, overwhelming the battleship's point defense systems. They crippled its engines and escaped before support arrived. Lieutenant Michael Torres turned his damaged cruiser into a missile platform. Launching every weapon he had at a Krell supply convoy before his ship finally exploded. The pattern repeated across the battlefield. Humans would strike, inflict damage, and disappear. Krell ships responded with overwhelming firepower, destroying empty space and wasting ammunition. Admiral Cross coordinated the chaos from her command ship, but her role was more curator than commander. She provided information and suggestions, but each captain made their own tactical decisions. The human fleet fought like nothing the Krell had ever encountered, and slowly, impossibly, they were winning. The cost of resistance, but victory had a price written in human blood. The destroyer Vigilant took a direct hit, while covering a retreat, its entire crew of 140 lost in seconds. The frigate Marathon held position against 3 Krell fighters, buying time for colonists to evacuate a surface installation. The frigate was destroyed, but every colonist survived. Captain Lisa Rodriguez kept her damaged cruiser fighting for 6 hours with half her systems offline, killing 2 Krell destroyers before her ship finally broke apart. Admiral Cross felt each loss like a physical wound. She knew the names of most of her captains. She had trained with many of them, shared meals and stories during the long journey to Threshold. Now she watched their icons disappear from her tactical display one by one. But she also saw something that made her losses bearable. The Krell were dying too, and they were dying faster. For every human ship destroyed, 2 or 3 Krell vessels were crippled or eliminated. The mathematics of attrition were slowly, agonizingly, shifting in humanity's favor. Governor Martinez coordinated ground defenses on Threshold itself. The Krell had sent landing forces to capture key installations, expecting quick victory against untrained colonists. What they found was improvised warfare that made no sense by their standards. colonists used agricultural tunnels to move unseen beneath Krell positions. They modified civilian vehicles into mobile weapon platforms. They abandoned positions without shame, retreating and regrouping, rather than standing and dying. Robert Chen, the elderly farmer who had chosen to stay, led a group that destroyed 3 Krell dropships using fertilizer bombs. He died in the attack, but his improvised weapon killed over 300 Krell soldiers. The message that spread across the stars, while humanity fought for survival. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Live transmissions from the battle zone reached every coalition world. Commentators, who had predicted humanity's quick destruction, now struggled to explain what they were seeing. The Krell were supposed to be invincible. Their military doctrine was supposed to be unbeatable. Yet they were being outfought by a species barely a century into space travel. Ambassador Webb saw an opportunity. He sent messages to every coalition member, attaching combat footage and casualty reports. His message was simple but powerful. Humanity fights for what is theirs. The Krell take what they want. Choose which galaxy you want to live in. The response was slow at first, cautious. But then something unexpected happened. A small fleet from the Teln Concordat entered the system. 12 ships bearing supplies and ammunition for the human fleet. The Teln ambassador explained that they were not joining the war, merely delivering humanitarian aid. But everyone understood the real message. Humanity had gained its first ally. Admiral Koros felt rage building in his chest as he studied the battle reports. His fleet had lost 300 ships in 2 days of fighting. The humans had lost half their fleet, but they refused to break. Worse, their tactics were improving. They learned from every engagement, adapted to every Krell response. His own commanders were becoming hesitant, second, guessing their decisions. The certainty that had always defined Krell warfare was crumbling. He sent a message to the Dominion High Command, requesting reinforcements. The response was cold and clear. There would be no reinforcements. If Koros could not defeat humans with 2,000 ships, more ships would not help. The problem was not numbers. The problem was that humanity fought like nothing the Krell had ever faced. The moment everything changed. On the 3rd day of battle, Admiral Cross gathered her remaining captains for a conference. 106 ships survived from the original 200. They were damaged, exhausted, running low on ammunition and hope. Cross stood before the holographic images of her officers and made a proposal that should have been insane. The Krell fleet had been weakened and scattered by days of guerrilla warfare. Their formation was broken, their communication networks disrupted, their commanders uncertain. Cross wanted to attack the Krell flagship directly. Not with the entire fleet, but with 12 ships in a suicide run. If they could kill Admiral Koros, the Krell command structure would collapse. Captain Amanda Foster volunteered immediately. She was young, barely 30 years old, and her destroyer had been damaged in every major engagement. She knew the mission was suicide, but she also knew it might end the war. 11 other captains volunteered within minutes. Cross chose them based on ship condition and crew readiness. She gave them one final order, spoken quietly. Make them remember that humans were here. The strike force launched 2 hours later, accelerating toward the Krell flagship at maximum burn. Admiral Koros saw them coming and recognized the danger too late. He ordered every nearby ship to intercept, but his fleet was scattered across the system. The human vessels punched through his defensive screen, losing ship after ship to overwhelming fire. Captain Foster's destroyer was the last one standing as it entered weapons range of the Eternal Victory. Her ship was on fire, her crew dead or dying, her reactor critical. She armed every remaining weapon, locked targeting on the Krell flagship's bridge, and transmitted 5 words back to Admiral Cross. "Tell them we did not run." Then her ship exploded against the Eternal Victory's shields, and the shields finally collapsed, and the Krell flagship died. The Krell fleet broke. Without their admiral, without central coordination. The rigid hierarchy that had served them for millennia became their weakness. Individual captains tried to retreat to pre-planned rally points, but human squadrons hunted them through the system. Some Krell ships surrendered, an act unthinkable in their long history. Others fought to the death, defending their honor, even as their empire's reputation shattered. By the end of the 4th day, the battle was over. Humanity had won, though the cost was terrible. 63 human ships survived. 8,000 crew members were dead. Threshold's surface was scarred by orbital bombardment, and 2,000 colonists had perished. But the Krell were defeated, their fleet destroyed, their invincibility proven false. The galaxy, that had to reconsider, news of humanity's victory spread faster than light itself. On every coalition world, species that had dismissed humans as weak primitives suddenly reconsidered their assumptions. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, and this time they listened when Ambassador Webb spoke. He did not gloat or make demands. He simply stated facts. Humanity had defended its territory against impossible odds. They had proven themselves capable of standing against any aggressor. They expected the same rights and protections granted to every coalition member. The Council voted unanimously to formally condemn the Krell invasion and recognize Threshold as sovereign human territory. More importantly, 36 species approached Earth with offers of alliance, trade, and military cooperation. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in fire and blood. Humans were not weak. They were not prey. They were survivors who turned desperation into strength and defeat into victory. And most importantly, they were not to be underestimated. President Chen addressed humanity in a speech transmitted to every human world and station. She spoke of the cost of their victory, honoring the names of those who had died defending Threshold. She acknowledged that humans had been lucky, that circumstances had favored their unconventional tactics. But she also declared that humanity would never again stand alone. They had proven themselves to the galaxy. From this day forward, any attack on human territory would be met with the full force of humanity's allies and the determined resistance that had become their trademark. The age of humanity's isolation had ended.